fun going through your pantry and fridge and getting rid of some of the yuck that I know you found there. I hope you've been able to replace at least your first 5 items, and I hope you're excited to keep replacing just a few items at a time every time you go grocery shopping. It's funny how these food companies try to get away with adding all these chemicals and toxins by using different names for them, right? I hope you find it as empowering as I do to get rid of this crap from your house and your diet. And the more you get rid of, the closer you get to your health and weight loss goals. Speaking of crap in your diet, what do you think of when you hear the words, "A spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down"? If you're around my age, you of course think of Mary Poppins. I used to love that song as a kid, but the more I think about it as an adult, the more it irritates me. Because refined sugar, those pretty white granules in little glass jars on almost every table or pantry across America, is actually more like a drug than a food. Not only does it stimulate the same receptors in the brain as alcohol and drugs like heroin, morphine, cocaine, and nicotine, just like those substances, it's a highly addictive toxin. And Americans are consuming an average of 156 pounds of it every year. That's about 21.5 teaspoons daily. The American Heart Association recommends that adult males get no more than 9 teaspoons daily and females no more than 6 teaspoons. But even that is too much, because when there's more than 2 teaspoons in our bloodstream at any one time, the pancreas secretes the hormone insulin to move the extra glucose to the cells to be used for energy. Small amounts turn into glycogen and are moved to the liver and stored for later energy use. However, when we eat too much sugar, the body overproduces insulin to try and remove the excess glucose. Since the glucose can't be used right away for energy, it gets stored in the liver as fat. And all the fructose in the sugar goes straight to the liver for fat storage. It never even goes to the cells at all. So not only is refined sugar sabotaging your weight loss efforts, but it's also linked to allergies, arthritis, gallstones, colitis, depression, gout, diabetes, hypoglycemia, heart disease, osteoporosis, obesity, and cancer. Who knew those sweet-tasting, innocent-looking, tiny little crystals could do so much damage? I went for the first 30-something years of my life without knowing that. And I'll never forget how I felt when I found out. It was 2014, and I had just started teaching. I was also enrolled in a holistic nutrition class. Well, I can never seem to focus on just one thing at a time, apparently. I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. Anyway, one of the required texts for the class I was taking was a book called The Science of Skinny by D. McCaffrey. In this book, which I highly recommend if you haven't read it already, it's a really great book. But anyways, inside the book, there's a section titled Sugar is a Cancer Fuel. And in this section, Dee talks about how sugar feeds cancer cells. So, this is what I did. Armed with this newfound knowledge of how dangerous sugar was, I set about on a mission to let everyone in my life know about it. Certainly, they would want to know that what they were putting into their bodies was making them overweight and sick, right? Because everyone wants unsolicited information and to be told what to do by a family member, friend, or coworker, right? No. I quickly found out that this wasn't the case at all. No one wanted to hear it. Because people don't want to be told what to do or what not to do. They also don't want to really listen to information that might sound preachy or condescending, or from someone they don't perceive as being an expert on the topic. If they want to make weekly batches of cookies and brownies for the entire staff, eat cake and ice cream every night before bed, or have a cookie with every meal, there's nothing in the world that's going to stop them. Unless they make the conscious decision to come to the information on their own and then decide to act on it. Since you're here with me, I know that you're ready to not only hear this information for maybe the first time, second time, maybe even 10th time, but you're ready to act on it. Because you're ready to reach your ideal weight, get strong and healthy, and improve the quality of your life. And cutting back on refined sugar, or cutting it out completely, is going to help you to do this. If you're someone who doesn't really crave sweets and doesn't eat a whole lot of them, that's awesome, and you're totally on the right track. However, considering that it's in almost all packaged foods, even some that might be surprising, you could be consuming more refined sugar than you think. Here are some unexpected sources of refined sugar. So we've got it in crackers, bagels, bread, macaroni and cheese, spaghetti sauce, canned fruits and vegetables, pastries, ice cream, condiments like ketchup, mayonnaise, and mustard, salad dressings, yogurt, frozen dinners, cured meats like canned meat, lunch meat, things like that, prescription drugs, including some vitamins and supplements, and soup. Okay, that's just a few of them, guys. There's actually a lot more that I could go into, but these are just some of the common things that we're buying all the time that we maybe don't realize that, they're full of refined sugar. The ice cream and pastries are probably pretty obvious, right? But the rest of the items aren't necessarily what comes to mind when we think of sugar, right? And speaking of things that are surprising, sugar is not really what comes to mind when most people think of addiction. However, I know many people who are struggling with a sugar addiction. So like I mentioned earlier, sugar activates the same receptors in the brain as narcotics like heroin and cocaine, which we know to be extremely addictive. So it's a very real and very harmful condition that's often downplayed and sometimes normalized, right, by popular culture. For example, when's the last time you went to a child's birthday party where cake and ice cream weren't served? Was there also a cooler full of soda? How many baking shows have you seen on Netflix or Hulu? And when's the last time you went to a restaurant and weren't offered dessert? Why are cookies, pastries, cakes, and donuts always near the front of the grocery store? Why are sweet, sugary drinks and snacks targeted to our kids? And energy drinks targeted to us and our teens? Why are food companies adding refined sugar to almost all of their products? Clearly, our society has a huge sugar problem. And once again, just like we did with MSG and trans fats, we've got to ask ourselves, why are the food companies adding refined sugar to almost all their products, even fully knowing full well how dangerous and potentially deadly it is? Do you think that the people making those foods actually eat them or serve them to their families? I'm sure you've noticed a pattern, and it really comes down to this. Food companies care more about making money than about the consumer. They do not care about us at all. After years of being programmed through commercials, magazine ads, and catchy slogans on the radio, it's kind of hard to wrap your brain around it, right, at first. And it was for me. But once we realize it, we become empowered to make a change. So if you're someone who struggles with a sugar addiction, the first thing I want you to do is give yourself a break. Realize it's not your fault. And you have literally, there's that word again, you've literally been conditioned your whole life to crave sugar and products containing sugar. And once you realize this, I hope you'll get mad. Now, I'm not talking about the kind of mad that makes you go out and do something crazy. Don't do that. Just get mad enough to realize that they've been trying to take your power away from you, and it's time to take it back. You have a real biological addiction, perpetuated by the food companies and supported by society. And just like with other addictions, the first step is becoming aware that there's a problem. Once you do this, then you can start to think about how to go about solving it. Because that's what we do with problems, right? We solve them. So here are some things to keep in mind as you work on getting rid of your sugar addiction and taking back your power. Number 1, realize that you don't need to cut all the sugar out of your life overnight. It's a gradual process and you're not expected to be perfect. Number 2, change your mindset. Instead of thinking, I'm depriving myself, reframe it to, I'm eliminating harmful toxins in order to nourish and protect my body. Number 3, you don't have to completely stop eating sweets. There are tons of healthy dessert options that will satisfy your sweet tooth without the refined sugar. Dee has some amazing recipes in that book that I mentioned, or you can just Google it and find tons of healthy desserts. Just remember, moderation in all things. What number are we on? 3? I think 3. Try to get more sleep. Believe it or not, it's possible that lack of proper sleep actually increases sugar cravings. Number 4, I think we're on 4. Start to learn the difference between a sugar craving and true hunger. When you get a craving, ask yourself, if all I had to eat right now was broccoli, do I still want it? And if not, then you are not hungry. Drink some water, find something else to do for 15 minutes, call a friend, go for a short walk, listen to some music, and see if that sugar craving goes away. Number 5, start reading labels. We talked about this in the last class, right? We have to know what's in our food. We don't want to stress about it, right? But we do want to try to find products that are low in sugar or have no added sugar. And just be careful that the sugar isn't being replaced with artificial sweeteners, which are usually just as bad, if not worse, than the refined sugar. And we're going to get to that in the next class. Number 6, I think. Buy organic whenever possible. I know that we've talked about this already. And being a mom on a budget, I know it's not always possible, but it is very worth it. Number 7, water is life. Don't forget to drink water throughout your day. Drinking lots of water can actually stop cravings before they start. And number 8, if you slip up, don't stress. You're literally making changes that will have a positive impact on every single aspect of your life. It's okay to make mistakes. Remember what I told my 3rd graders? If you're doing your best and you don't give up, then you can never fail. All right, back to Mary Poppins. As Dee points out in her book, and which I absolutely believe to be true, if we didn't consume so much sugar, along with all the other yucky ingredients we're talking about, we would probably not need medicine at all. Can you imagine a pharma-free society? How amazing would that be? All right, so we know that one of the best things we can do for ourselves, not only to lose weight, but to improve our health in every way, is to cut out or at least severely reduce the amount of refined sugar in our diets. And I can tell you that once you start to do this, it's actually really not that hard. I found that once I stopped eating refined sugar, I completely stopped craving it, especially because there are a ton of healthy sugars that you can use to replace it with, which we'll get to soon. That being said, I'm sure you can guess what your homework is for today's class. I want you to do the same thing you did with MSG and trans fats with sugar. So you're going to go through your fridge and pantry, look at your ingredient lists, and then on page 21 of your weight loss journal, I'll give you a list of all the sneaky words they use for refined sugar. Try and replace these products 5 at a time, just like you did for MSG and trans fats. And if going through ingredient lists doesn't sound like your idea of a good time, just know that pretty much any product you have in any of the categories we talked about earlier is going to contain some version of refined sugar. So if you can find an organic version, replace it with that. And if you can't, then you're going to have to decide if it's something that you can live without. If not, don't worry about it for now. Like we talked about in our last class, there's no possible way to be perfect. And trying to will only stress us out more, which is definitely not our goal here. Our goal is to get rid of as much of the junk as we possibly can within reason, so we can stop as many toxins and chemicals as possible from disrupting our hormones and keeping us overweight and sick. Also, on page 20 of your weight loss journal, you'll find the list of things we talked about that help to deal with a sugar addiction. And you can check my numbers and see if I was completely off. If this is something you're struggling with, remember to refer to this page as often as you need it. You could even take it out of your journal and hang it on your fridge or wherever you need it to be to help you disrupt that addiction cycle. Okay, that's it for today's class on that sweet little molecule that's really not so sweet. Have fun with your homework, and I'll see you in our next class. Love you. Bye.